Hello friends, this is my very first Little Golden Book tutorial, so bear with me. The video's not great, but you need a Little Golden Book. I use Mod Podge, scissors, chipboard for the spine, random pages for your pages of your junk journal, and all, and I use waxed thread for my journals. You can purchase a kit and it will have the awl and the thread. The only thing it doesn't include is the glue. It includes the pages. I'm not sure what else I just put up there. Maybe my embroidery needle. I'll leave a list below of everything you need. Here I am taking apart the Little Golden Book. If you can find where the staples are, I'm kind of trying to show you there. I used my letter opener. I've used butter knives to kind of open that up a little bit until I can pull it to remove those staples. If you know right where they are, it makes it a little bit easier to get apart. So I got it apart, and then I'm going to take those two signatures that are in there out and get them prepared. There's usually two in most Little Golden Books. I have had some where they weren't two signatures, but generally they're two signatures. So I got those apart. There's two of them, and I set those aside and get the book ready. So here I do cut the spine out of the Little Golden Book. There's a line where it creases, and I just use a cutter, an X-Acto knife, and I cut right along that edge with the X-Acto knife and cut the covers off and cut the spine off. You can make a bookmark out of the spine. I did not in this case, but I do keep them if they're complete. So there's my front and back covers ready to get started on this Little Golden Book junk journal. Next, here I am trimming down my spine. For this junk journal, I did the spine at 1 3/4, I do believe, to fit my fabric. I think I cut it at 2 inches first. I generally do it 2 inches, but my fabric strip was not quite 2 inches. Or it was more than 2 inches, but not quite long enough to cover. Here I am trimming off the top of that chipboard. I just used the book to measure it. You want it the exact length of your Golden Book, which is typically 8 inches. I'm measuring it out, making sure it fits, it's the same length. And then here I am picking out fabric for the spine. These are, I'd say, quilt strips that I picked up at a thrift store, and they're already cut. So I'm trying to use these up. Generally, I think I'm going to trim it down here in a minute. But generally, when I cut my strips, I cut them a little bit wider. So I usually have a 2-inch spine. But for this one, I think I did 1 3/4 inches. But these strips were really springy and cute, so I thought they were perfect. So I'm just taking a few seconds to pick out the fabric that I feel is the best, the cutest. Okay, I'm going to speed this up so you don't have to watch this painstaking me making choices, because I have a hard time making choices sometimes. Thank you for watching my channel. Please like and follow the video. I'm new to creating content here on YouTube, and so I appreciate all the likes and follows. I like how this looks with this book, so I decide this is the one. So now I'm just kind of measuring everything out. I spread that out on my desk. So here I'm trimming that. I think I cut it in half so that I can add my spine. So here I am putting the covers and the spine I kind of center the spine in the fabric, and as I stated before, the spine was a little bit wider than I felt comfortable with, so this is where I'm figuring that out. Most of my books are trial and error, and I left most of that in here for you, so here I am trimming it down. I either went with 1.5 inches or 1 3/4 inches. It's really totally whatever your preference is. In my kits, because I'm trying to use these strips up, you're probably going to want to go with 1 3/4 inches or 1.5 inches for your spine. I do sell DIY kits with everything except for the glue. I just haven't found a great way to ship the glue, so I feel like Mod Podge is pretty easy to come by. The little bottle I use here I got at the Dollar Tree for $1.25. So I center my chipboard in the center of the fabric, and I line them up, and then I get my Mod Podge out. So I make sure everything is lined up and that chipboard's in the center. Thank you so much for watching my first little golden book junk journal tutorial. So here I've got my paintbrush, and I'm going to do a layer of Mod Podge on that chipboard. I just do it on the chipboard for now, and then I will flip that chipboard over and try to center it as close to center. I don't measure anything, it's kind of willy-nilly, but I do put a generous, not a ton, but a generous layer of Mod Podge on my chipboard before I flip it over. Get it flipped over and centered where I want it, and press it down, and then I put Mod Podge on the fabric on this side of the chipboard and over. Oops, big mess. I did come back from that, but it was a big oopsie. My husband had to bring me some paper towels, but we managed. If you're enjoying this amateur video, please give me a like and a follow. So here my husband brought me the paper towels, and I did clean up my excess Mod Podge everywhere. There was like a plug in it, and I guess when I squeezed it, it squirted way too much out. The joys of being a crafter. So anyway, then I'm gonna add the front cover on and press it down onto that fabric, kind of make sure it's sticking, and then I'll add the back cover on as well, make sure it is sticking too. And I try to not get a bunch on the cover of the Mod Podge excess, but it does happen. So then I'm gonna get my paintbrush out, and I'm going to brush some more just right on the very edge of the cover, just enough to get the fabric to stick to. And so here I am pulling the bottom of that fabric up, pressing it down, and making sure it's all flat and there are no wrinkles. And then the top, now I don't want it to overlap too much, so I am going to trim it here. So it just barely overlaps. So I trim that up and stick it down. And then I do another thin layer of the Mod Podge to make sure it's all sticking down. And that little overlap, I put a little extra on and stick that down. Your hands will get gluey and kind of sticky, but it's just part of crafting, I think. So it's nice to have a handy paper towel just to wipe the excess that you might get on the book cover. This is for an order for a friend, and so I wanted it to be nice for her. If you don't mind to please like and follow me on here so I can maybe go live and do some live tutorials maybe in the future. So here I'm just checking the edges and the sides, and I'm going to do a layer of Mod Podge on the outside part of the fabric here. I learned how to make a little golden book journal from Leah at Thrifty Day. I follow her tutorial pretty closely and her way of doing it pretty closely. Maybe not exactly, and I may not use the exact tools that she does, but mostly I do use her tutorial, and that's how I learned how to do it. So if you want to see a more professional tutorial, I'd say go over on her channel and check that out. So here is the cover so far. I'm gonna let it dry. I actually just got a new heat gun, so I'm gonna experiment with that on this one so I can get it done and get it out to the customer as quickly as possible. I'm gonna speed this up. You're gonna watch about 15 minutes and 2 seconds. Alright, so it's finally pretty dry. So now I'm just gonna check it out, feel it, make sure it's dry enough, make sure it opens and closes good, all looks good, and then I'll be ready to get some papers ready for my signatures. A signature is just a group of papers in a book. This golden book will have 2 signatures. Here I just wanted to show you it overhangs because we took that spine off. And I used to just cut off that edge, but it cuts into the story. So I am doing it a different way now, but I will show you that process at some point. Here I'm measuring it. I think it's probably about 8 tall and 6 wide. Just making sure that that's the general measurement of a little golden book. 8 inches tall and 6 inches wide. A paper cutter is a great investment. If you're going to get into making more junk journals, I would suggest to get a paper cutter. So I'm going to cut just maybe about a 1/2 inch off, maybe not even quite that much. I just measured it to 6 inches, and I do cut off where it folds. Now I didn't used to do that, but now I do cut off the fold and I tape it back together with the pages back together with washi. The reason I do it like that is because I found that when I cut off the other edges, I was cutting off a big chunk of the story. I'm not sure what I did there, why I didn't finish that video, I'm not sure. So now I'm just preparing pages, folding them, getting them ready for the signatures. I usually take, this is a 12 by 12 sheet, and I'm making pockets. I think it's cardstock, and I make pockets. Some of them I fold in. This is a good place to use a bone folder if you have one. I have one. I don't know why I didn't use it. But you can just press down really hard, get your creases really good. So I fold some this way to make a folder, and then I fold some with the pockets on the outside. I usually do even amounts of both. So here's another piece of paper. I am using that mat there to measure, trying to stay around 8 inches because that's how tall my book is, and I don't want to trim a whole ton, but I do trim some. So, but right now I'm just folding the pages and getting them ready for the book. If you wouldn't mind to give me a like and a follow, I would surely appreciate it. Next, here's where I was talking about folding some of my pockets outward. So I'm folding this cardstock just like I do at around 8 inches. But instead of folding it like a folder, I'm putting the pockets on the outside. I really want this to be the center of my signatures. So I loved this paper. It was really pretty, springy. So I thought it went really well with the book. So I just wanted to slow down a minute and show you that. And I'm going to speed back up while I finish the rest of these pages. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching this tutorial and supporting me in my first tutorial. It's definitely not professional, but I had a good time making it and making this journal. So here I did slow down a bit. I'm measuring out those pages for the signature, making sure they're the right size. Again, always measure your little golden book. They're typically 8 inches tall and 6 inches wide, but you always want to give each book a good measure just to be sure. So I'm trimming the height of these down to 8 inches, and then I will trim the edges down to where they fit 6 inches. But I always Measure, I put it next to the book to make sure also. Now I'm going to speed that process up just a little bit. You don't want to watch that long, monotonous measuring papers and cutting them, because there's going to be a round 2 of cutting and measuring papers again. So here I sort the signatures into 2 different piles. I generally put the same types of papers in each side, whether they're the same thing or not, and decide what order they go in. I put both my signatures in the same order. You do not have to do that. The next thing I do is just make sure all my signatures are tightly together. I measure them up next to the book, and I realize I need to do a little bit more trimming. Some people just leave that sticking out. It bothers me, but if you're putting lace trim on, it really will be covered, so it won't matter. But I want to make sure that my signatures all fit evenly. I will tell you, like, after you cut your signatures and you put them together, the middle ones are going to stick out because they're toward the middle and as it's building up on itself. I think sewing them in will alleviate just some of that, not a lot. But I like mine to be even, so I am going to spend the time to just trim them again. And it's just ever so slightly. It's not a lot of trimming that needs done. So I work through that, doing that until they're to my liking. Like I said, you do not have to do this. Some people just leave them. They're not bothered by that. So I'm checking again, and it looks like they're good and even. So once I've got them all even, I will do the next signature, and I've already done that. I did that off camera. Make sure they're even. And now this is a bookbinding cradle. You can get one of these and use. Artistic Journal Creations is where I got mine. But for this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do it without that, with just the tools that are in your kit. So you need some of those binder clips. You need a piece of paper. You're going to cut it down to the size of the spine, which for this one I think we did an inch and a half across by 8. It's the same height as the books, and then an inch and a half. So I'm going to cut that out, make sure that I did the right measurements. Did not, so I leave all that in here so you can see. I think it was an inch and 3/4, not an inch and a half, so that you can see that it's trial and error. So that is looking right. So I'm going to use that. I'm just going to put it up next to the book and trim the excess off. Then I know I'm the exact height of the book, of my spine. So next we'll start folding the template we've made. This is going to tell us where to put our holes. So first I fold it in half long ways. Pretty close to exact. Mine's not always perfect. And the smaller the piece of paper, the harder it is to do that. But get it in half as close as you can. And crease it really well. And so that's what I'm doing here. And I think I was fumbling with this one because it's a little more narrow than I'm used to. I usually do a 2-inch spine, but because of our fabric, I did a 1 3/4 so that I had plenty of fabric to hold the spine on. Okay, so I did it in half. Now I'm going to fold those sides to that half mark and then crease there on both sides. We're still long ways. If you want to pause and rewind here to watch this again, I totally understand. It took me a few times before I got this down. And this is just making a template of knowing where to poke holes in your signatures and in your spine so that they line up. It's important that they line up when you go to sew your signatures in. And I poke them separately. So this helps me. So then I fold it in half the other way. So here I am folding it in half, crease it, and then fold those sides into that half. So it's giving me cross points to make my holes. So right where all the folds are and where they cross is where I'm going to make each of my holes, because I'm going to have 3 punches in my signatures. So the outer 2 holes that I'm making, and here I guess I hadn't creased it enough because I really couldn't see my cross, my lines cross. The outer 2 holes are where, the outer 2 holes are where I'll poke my holes into my spine. And that center hole, if you wanted to put in a 3rd signature, is where you would put that. But that's the one I use for my signatures. So I label it top and bottom. I don't know why it matters, but it matters. Sometimes it doesn't come out if you don't have them marked top and bottom. So then I use these clips I got at the Dollar Tree to hold that template on my book and to poke the holes. And then I make sure it's all lined up where I want it, and we're ready to poke those holes. So I get my awl, which the awl came in your kits. So if you got a kit from me, you should have this awl just like this to poke your holes for your signatures, for your binding. So I find those holes, and that's where I'm going to poke them, the outside holes. So that was just me referencing, make sure you only poke the outside holes. I've poked the inside holes on accident, and I just didn't use them. So, but if you were going to do 3 signatures, you would poke all 3 sets of holes. So here I wanted to show you a little bit how it's going through my spine. If you don't make sure it's completely dry, it could, it makes it a little harder to go through. My spine wasn't quite dry, so really, if you're in a hurry, use the heat gun or a blow dryer. But if not, get your spine on and wait a day, and it'll be really dry, and it'll be so much easier to poke your holes. I don't know why it makes a difference, but it sure does. Here, it was dry, but it was not. The inside was still a little damp, but I wanted to do this tutorial from start to finish, and it works. I could have dried it a little longer, but I probably got impatient. So I got my holes poked. Be careful here not to poke yourself. I do it willy-nilly. Sometimes in your packing you get big sheets of big thick foam. Use that and poke through that. That works really great. That's what Thrifty Day does. So again, I don't know. I think I said earlier in this video, I've did my voice recording over a couple of days, that I follow pretty closely Thrifty Day's little golden book tutorial. So there are tons out there. If you have a different style or method you would like to use, I would suggest watch several. I've watched several different creators, and I may use some stuff I learned from others, but Thrifty Day is the main one that I follow. So here I'm clipping all of my pages with those binder clips. They hold them pretty sturdy, so that's why I like to use binder clips. So again, I make sure they're all straight, as tight as possible before I'm clipping them. Apparently I'm being really picky with this one. Maybe it's because of the tutorial. Anyway, I clip them on all 4 sides, the tops and the bottoms. And apparently I'm fumbling with this binder clip. So any size of binder clip will work. I use some small ones and some big ones on these pages. They're really handy to have though. So there we go. We're ready to sew in our first signature. I'm just showing you how it looks. So here we've got to poke our holes for our to sew it in. So I use those clips again to clip this in. I use that fold in the half. We're going to use that center holes to poke our holes. Don't forget to put your top at the top and your bottom at the bottom. Here's where I would probably definitely use that bookbinding cradle, but it works really good doing it this way. This is how I did it before I had that, so it's just as easy of a way to do it. if I need to. I like to poke my awl all the way through just and kind of bore that hole out a little bit to make sure that my needle will go through. Then make sure to take that piece of paper out. I have accidentally sewed it in. Thank goodness on the second signature so that I didn't have to remake one and make sure it fit the right way. So I keep those pages clipped together. I get my book out and now I'm ready to sew it in. So in your kits, you have wax thread that I've included. I measure out about 3 lengths and a little bit more, and you don't need the little bit more, but I always do it, of the wax thread to sew my signatures in. Don't have exact measurement. I just do it 3 lengths of the book. Next, I get my needle out. I included an embroidery needle in each kit. Actually, I think I included 2 because I could never find one. So I wanted to make sure you had plenty. They're at least easy to thread because they have a huge hole. So I'm thankful for that. So I start out by going through that center hole, getting it through before I get it through the book. And now you don't tie or anything at the other end. You can use washi tape to tape it down into the signature because washi comes up pretty easy. But I always leave enough to clamp it into that clip. And then I'm just careful that I don't pull it out. I have before and had to start over. So you probably will sometimes have to start over a time or 2. So then we'll go into the first center hole and pull it through. And I never tighten anything up at this point. I do get it somewhat tight. Then I go back into the bottom hole. I get it through the book generally on this round first. And then I get it through my signature. My ways aren't always conventional, but they work for me. And then I poked through those signatures. Now I have bore that hole out some with the awl by twisting it a little bit when I'm poking the hole. So it came through pretty easy. Now I'm going to go back through the center. Not everybody does it this way, but this is how I learned from Thrifty Day, so this is how I do it. To me, it makes my signatures feel more secure. You can watch other people do the 3, it's a pamphlet stitch, I think, 3 pamphlet stitch, 3 hole pamphlet stitch. I don't know what it's called, but so I go back through the center, making sure not to go through your thread, because if you go through your thread, I've done it 100 times, you have to start over because it will not hold then. So then I get through the book for the third one and try to make sure I'm lined up, and then pull that all the way through. I use my table underneath me to push that needle through. So I've went through the third hole. Now I'm going to go all the way up to the top hole. So I went middle, bottom, middle, top. So now I'm going through then I go from the top all the way to the bottom hole. So, and please make sure not to go through that string. It makes a difference if you do. So it does get a little bit hard, but if you have a pair of pliers, you can pull that needle through. And so here I have it. I went through the middle, through the bottom, back through the middle, through the top, then from the top up down to the bottom, and now I'm going back in through the middle. Now, I've heard some people do this backwards to where their strings are outside their spine and they can hang dangles. I might try it sometime. If that's what you want to do, instead of starting in through the middle of the book, start in through the back. I don't know. I haven't tried it, but it's a tip I learned. So here's where I tighten everything up. I'm pulling on the strings, making sure they're tight on the outside of my book. And then my needle came unthread. So I'm going to rethread that needle, and now I'm going back in through the middle for the last time. And I like to get on the other side of that string, and then I will tie it off on over the string. Some people leave that string open so they can slide things in. That's totally your prerogative, but here's where I check my stitches, tighten everything up, and then I do 3 ties here. Just knots, just regular knots, no fancy thing. 3 of them. 1, 2, and 3. You can trim your strings off low here, but I like to put a little bow. If you get this book and you don't like the bow, take it out and trim those strings off. So there, our first signature is in. You can remove the clips, and we'll go through this one more time, but I'm going to speed it up just so you can see it. So there's our first signature all sewn in. Feels pretty good. Now I do clamp. Now we're ready for the second signature. I do clamp that first signature so it doesn't get in my way. So I was so excited to get my first signature in. I'm showing you that it's in there sturdy. So now I think I'm going to clamp that signature. Maybe. I'm staring at my work, I guess. Yeah, here I go. I'm clamping that signature so it's out of my way. I'm going to start the process over again. Maybe I'm not. I don't know what I'm doing here. Oh, I'm going to poke the holes in my signature, and I need that clamp to do that. So I get this all ready. I'm going to speed up here. We're just doing the same process again. Clipping all of the signatures together, making sure they're as tight as possible. Getting them clipped together. Using that template we made to poke the holes. So I poke all 3 holes through that and kind of wiggle it around to make sure they're big enough. And then I clamp that signature and get ready to sew 3 lengths of that wax thread. In case you didn't get that before, start in the center, go through the center. Don't forget to clamp your thread down. Go through that center hole. Then I go through the bottom and then back through the center. Again, I don't make sure it's tight here. Then I go back through the center hole. And this is a lot, really fast. Back through the center hole, up through the top, back in through the top. Do you see I came through the book first and then through the signatures? You can totally do that. So now I'm going to, see my thread came loose there. Go back down to the bottom hole. Get it through and then back through the center hole. So recap that: center, bottom, center, top, bottom, center. Then tie 3 times for good measure and a little bow. And look, we've got our signature sewn in, guys. Thanks for hanging with me this long. If you don't already, please like this video, follow it, share it. It's not a professional tutorial, but it is mine. There I am. Those bags I went through and cut the end so then I have a pocket on where the bottom of the bag generally is. I cut that off and make it a pocket. Here's the second one. If you've made it this far in my video, please like and subscribe to my channel. I want to put out more tutorials. Now I'm going to make sure, I'm going to go through and glue all of my folders and things. So I have my hot glue gun heated up, and so that's what I'm going to do. Again, please forgive me for my video skills because I'm not a professional videographer. So if you want a real tutorial, real life, you're at the right place. So all I'm literally doing is gluing those pockets shut, and I'm going to speed up now. If you're watching this part right here, will you give me a pink heart emoji? Just so I know you've made it 30 minutes with me. All right, now we're ready for the fun part. We're going to add our book corners and other embellishments. So here I'm picking out some book corners. I think I went with rose gold for this one. I don't remember. Oh, nope, just gold. No, I don't know. No, I don't think I went with that one. See, I'm so indecisive. Thank you for hanging out this long. I hope you enjoy the video. I think I actually went with gold. It's been a while since I made this video and sent this package out, so I've recorded over several days because it's taking forever. I appreciate you watching and hanging out this long. So here I'm going to get this brad with ring. That's what I call it. It's where I got it from Amazon. It's a brad with ring. That's what I typed in, and that's how I found it. So I got gold to match my book corners, and we're going to get all that stuff installed. I am going to use a little super glue since I sold this one on my corners. I usually don't on my own book corners, and sometimes because I carry them around everywhere, they do fall off. So since this was for someone else, I'm outside of the frame, and I apologize. all I'm doing, maybe I'm going to try to get in the frame. All I am doing is putting a thin little layer of that super glue. There we go. I don't know, I'm trying to figure it out. Again, my video skills are not great. I'm going to go out just a little bit so you can see some of my messy desk, and I'm still, there I am. Okay, nope. Come on, make up your mind. I'm watching a tutorial, if you can't tell there, myself while I'm doing this. I'm still, there we go. Maybe get it together, Angie. So I'm going to put a thin layer of that super glue on the corner of my book. I'm sorry I made you watch that painstaking getting in the frame. Thin layer on the corner. You don't use a ton or it's going to squish out and get on your hands. And if you've ever got super glue on your hands, then you know how annoying that is. So I put the lid back on my super glue. It's out of frame, but make sure you put it on back on between. And then I push it on, and I think I got some super glue on my fingers, if I remember correctly. Then I'm going to get my pliers. They're pretty flat, and I'm going to just squeeze those book corners on. Like I said before, I generally don't glue them on, but since this was for a customer, I wanted to make sure that those book corners were secure. I decided to get a paper towel so that I did not leave marks on the book corner itself to cover it and protect it. And make sure I have it on how I want it squeezed in, and I'm going to give it one more good squeeze, again for good measure, because this is for a customer. This is Lexi's journal, and I was so happy to be able to make this for her, and I needed to do a tutorial, so it was the perfect time to do a tutorial. I cannot talk. Anyway, so we're going to do the same thing, and then I'm going to speed up after this one. A thin layer of super glue. I use the Gorilla brand. You can use any brand you'd like. I use the gel too because it doesn't run. So that's a little tip there, the gel super glue. Anyway, so if you're interested, please message me about these kits. I usually sell them over there on the short video platform, and or email me if you're interested. But I put kits together with everything we've used here, all the tools, minus like the pliers and the clips are not in there. But the thread, the awl, the needle, all the hardware, the book corners, the binder ring, Brad binder ring, Brad with the ring, I'll get it right, all in my kit. All the papers you see, the fabric for your spine, the trim, there's some trim, there's probably not as much trim as I end up putting on this book, but I'm going to speed up here so you don't have to watch this again. Do you guys watch anything specific while you're creating? I usually watch other creators, or listen to rather, because I'm usually concentrating on my project, other creators' tutorials while I am creating, and whatever my husband's watching in the background. All right, they're on. Yay, we've made it this far. Thank you for sticking with me for almost 40 minutes. I'm telling you, I cut out a ton. So now I'm going to add that Brad with ring to my spine. So I'm going to use those clamps. I got these, I guess I used the binder clips, but I got the little pink clamps, the metal clamps with the pink from Dollar Tree. Now I have a crocodile. You do not have to have a crocodile. Generally, you can punch a hole with a regular hole punch. But if not, you can use that awl to punch a hole. It doesn't have to be a huge hole. So you can virtually use what you have in the kit. I'm just making sure I get lined up. I am using my crocodile. I prefer it over a regular hole punch because of the leverage I get with it. But you can, I've done this with a regular hole punch. Also, you just have to have a hole big enough to slip those brad things through, so the tines on it. So you do not have to use even a hole punch if it doesn't go through. You can just poke a hole with an awl. I did a junk journal meetup and we made trapper keepers, and I forgot the hole punch, and so we used awls, and it worked just fine to make holes. So you can use the awl that's in your kit here. Then I put that on there, and I used some E6000 to glue the back of it down. I generally hot glue it, but I felt like E6000 is going to be a little more secure, and I do put some of it underneath that brad I want it to stay because this is for a customer, and E6000 is very strong. It does take a while to dry, but I want to use that for this brad. I generally hot glue it, and hot glue is not always the best adhesive for something like this, so I'm going to fumble around with this glue because that's just how I roll. Anyway, I think I just decided to put it in the brad. Yeah, just a little bit in the brad. I impress myself sometimes. Again, it's been a while since I recorded this, so I forgot. But I want to make sure that that'll stay, so I just put a little thin layer around just to secure it to the spine of my junk journal, or of this junk journal. So that's what I'm doing here, and it's apparently taking me forever. All right, I'm sorry for my antics here. I want to always put the lids back on the glue. I had an E6000 literally turn into concrete because I guess I didn't put the lid back on right. So, lesson learned. That's too expensive to mess that up. You put that on, and then open those in the back. And I didn't get it far enough down that it didn't stick up over my spine, so I'm going to trim one of those with wire cutters. Trim's pretty easy. See how it sticks up over the spine? I do not like that, so I'm going to get my wire cutters out and trim that piece off. So I cut about 3 minutes of me trying to fumble around to find my tool out. Next, I'm going to take a piece of the fabric that matches the spine, and I'm just going to cover that up just to make it look nicer. All I'm using is hot glue, and I sped this up for you too because I feel like this is pretty self-explanatory. So I'm hot gluing this piece of fabric down just to cover up that brad, and it looks a lot better like that. I like it. So we're ready to, I think all the hardware and stuff's put on. I think we're ready to embellish. I really don't feel like you need a tutorial on this because this is going to be your style, whatever you'd like for your style. So I'm just zeroing in on that ring. And now it's time, we're going to get to decorating those pages. So I open up to the first folder. Now generally, I don't know what I was thinking this day. I only add to 2 or 3 pieces of my cardstock, or anywhere in the book add the trim, but on this one I added to every cardstock, so every folder. Here I'm just trying to figure out, and I'm going to speed up because this was painstaking trying to figure out what trim I wanted to use. Alright, I did you a favor and deleted all that painstakingess. So apparently I think I've picked out what I'm going to use, trying to get my camera where I would like it. If you peep up in the corner, I'm on my tablet watching a tutorial. So here I go. I use hot glue to add my trim. Nothing fancy here, quick because I'm impatient. So I did choose white lace, and I choose those colorful pom-poms because I love them so much. And so I'm going to speed up here because after I show you putting one on, because it really is just so easy. So I have got my glue gun heated up. I'm going to do a thin layer of glue across that page, and then I'll put my trim down. I think it's Surebonder cordless glue gun, but it does have a cord that you plug in. I have another cordless glue gun that is battery operated, and the battery is good, and that's great for when I go like to my junk journal meetups. But for this, it's a little thinner layer of glue, and I really like that. I have more precision. So I go through and on every single piece of cardstock or my folders that I put in, I add trim. Generally don't do this, but I hope Lexi didn't mind that she was already thick when she got her with all that trim. So I wouldn't suggest adding as much trim as I did to this one, but I was enjoying doing it, and it was so pretty, and I just got a little overboard. So Lexi, if you don't like all the trim, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for spending time with me doing this tutorial. I did enjoy recording it. I'm a teacher. I'm a second grade teacher, so I enjoy teaching people. I did forget to record making these little embellishments for this journal. Literally all it is these are some cupcake toppers, and I just washi them into the top of the book. And I think when I shipped it, I ended up having to move them down. And then this one was a piece of garland, I think. And I took or an ornament type thing, and I just glued a paper clip to it and put it in the book. I don't know when I stopped or how or why I stopped recording, but I did, and I'm out of frame a little bit. I apologize again. Not a professional videographer. Okay, I have a small hole punch that punches a small hole. I punched a hole, and then I am adding this little carrot to the side of the book. I just punched a hole right in the book to add that little carrot to. Thought it was cute. So I have a smaller hole punch, and I got that at, I think, Hobby Lobby or Michael's. I'm not sure, but it's just a regular hole punch, but with a really small hole. So I'm putting that on right now. Now for one of my favorite parts of making a golden book, that is stuffing it full of all kinds of ephemera. So I just found all kinds of ephemera to stuff this little golden book, and so I'm gonna get to stuffing. I decided to speed this up. I picked out a bunch of stuff just to shove in all the pockets and places. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial so far. We've been together almost 50 minutes. I enjoyed making it. I did speed up a lot of parts for you. Next, let's admire. I've added a dangle to it, and I'm just kind of admiring what I've done. It's always so nice to see a golden book journal come together, and it's so rewarding at the end when you've finished seeing what all your hard work has created. The last thing I did with this book is I got some tea dyed or coffee dyed ribbon, and I tied around it because she was thick, and then I just kind of admired what I had done. Out of frame. All right, here we go. Here she is. All finished. I hope you followed along with this tutorial. If you're interested in one of my kits, please reach out. I'm over on TikTok, Angie's Paper Pantry. Thank you so much for spending this time with me and going through this tutorial. Again, I'm no professional, but I do love to teach, so I just want to share my passion for junk journaling with you. Thank you for watching. Lexi, I hope you love your journal.